welcome to A Good Walk Spoiled, Adventures in Golf, hosted by Scott Poniewaz, also known as @Pony Golf. Today we are back with another episode of A Good Walk Spoiled. Today is actually going to be sort of a pre-recorded episode. I guess all of them are pre-recorded, but I'm actually starting to record a couple for while I'm away in Australia. So I'm actually making my way over the extra large ponds and going to go on a little vacation for a couple weeks. But while I'm away, I want to make sure that the cadence of episodes keeps up. And I thought, what more timeless of an episode to record than the story of pony golf? Basically, who I am, how I came to build my golf following, and eventually launch this podcast. But in doing so, I also want to drop in a couple of little random things that I discovered along the way as I was kind of just researching myself a little bit for this episode and just checking out the old Google. So we've got some fun little things to toss in there aside from my my little story about how I started golfing and how I eventually got onto some of the amateur tours and eventually built the @pony_golf Instagram kind of persona. So we'll get into that here in a minute. Before we do jump into everything, just want to remind everybody, go check me out on millions.co/Poniewaz-golf, and check out some of the merch. There's some cool shirts coming along in there, and pretty excited to have my Holderness and Born shirts that are basically only for me at this point, but you can always just go and buy your own blank Holderness and Borns. I'm going to drop links into my link tree to go find Holderness and Born for your own gear. Love their golf shirts. That's basically where I first fell in love with Holderness and Born, but also some of their sort of knit tops, which are perfect for the transition seasons that I get to experience here in Montana. And then just, some of their other gear as well, their pants, etc. Go check out the Holderness and Born link. Go check out the millions.co/Scott-Poniewaz-golf to go get some t-shirts, hats featuring the pony golf / A Good Walk Spoiled logo there. Check all that out. We've got a fun episode today, and excited to share my story. Some of you might have heard it on other podcasts that are out there. I know that I'm starting to do some recordings with the Golfer Gang Network, so depending on when you listen to this podcast, you might hear about my story on another one of those podcasts or another golf podcast, but hopefully I can share some new tidbits for you. So without further ado, let's just dive into today's episode. So to tell the story of pony golf and how I came to be, I tried to also look up and just see sort of what else comes up when you Google pony golf, and just to see kind of what else is out there. So it turns out that there's some company it looks like over in the UK, that essentially does pony golf as a company that does golf trolleys, as they call them, or we call them walking carts here in the States. But I found that pretty fascinating. It looks like maybe about a year, maybe 2 years ago. So after I started, whereas I have the domain pony.golf. So if you type in the URL pony.golf, you'll get kind of like my high-level basic website, but theirs is apparently pony-golf and has the golf trolleys. So to them, whatever traffic that they see come out of this podcast, feel free to reach out, and we can chat offline. But the one that actually surprised me the most was, aside from some of the My Little Pony things that ultimately end up coming through the Googles, was the article that a guy by the name of Dick Shearer wrote. And he happens to be the president of the Lansdale, Pennsylvania Historical Society. I doubt he expected that this article would get picked up. It's sort of hidden in a weird PDF form, pretty far down on the search results. But, when you're digging on your own history, you gotta, go pretty deep. Pony golf, obviously, I created it, but that is my sort of Instagram handle, and my nickname, as Scott Poniewaz, growing up, was actually Pony. It actually was my father's, my older brother's, my grandfather even carried the nickname Pony, just because a name like Poniewaz isn't always the easiest to have just roll off your tongue. So I've always had the Pony nickname. But and I'll get into the history of my whole pony golf and how that all started to be. But the history article that I found, written by, again, Dick Shearer, or when I sort of looked him up on LinkedIn, it looks like he goes by Richard Shearer as well. But he is the president and administrator of the Lansdale Historical Society. He ended up writing this article, looks like for the Lansdale Historical Society newsletter, talking about the new game of golf in 1930 that was sweeping through the nation during the late 20s and finally landed in Lansdale in the summer of 1930, and that was the game of pony golf. Essentially, pony golf, which I had never heard until now, is another name for the early game of miniature golf. And apparently in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, July 3rd, 1930, according to this article, the North Penn Reporter wrote a story about the Lansdale Pony Golf Course being completed and open to the public that evening of July 3rd. So the Lansdale community was apparently up in arms and so excited about the new Lansdale Pony Golf Course opening. I'm going to try to read a couple of these excerpts without boring you, but I thought it was such a sort of fascinating piece of golf history, especially as it ties to the pony golf history. Also, if you're watching the YouTube, which I highly recommend you tune into my YouTube version of the podcast, I'll try to throw a little, well, I guess maybe on the other side of my head, the little ad that's showcased here, and it's a good game improved, and the announcement says the popular outdoor recreation ... pony golf improved with new playing rules on the best course in the North Penn, and it too has been improved. Bring your family and friends to enjoy a round or two tomorrow. Avoid traffic worries. Play pony golf, shuffle, or quoits here. Listen to the fights tonight at Lansdale Pony Golf. And it's got a couple animation characters of the mini golf course. So I do have to look up what quoits is, and I can't believe that I didn't even think about doing that. So I'm going to, try to add that in a little later this episode. But apparently it's a sort of rope, or I guess ring version of horseshoes. And I'm finding out very quickly that you throw either metal, rope, or rubber rings over a set distance, sort of horseshoe-esque style, and put it around a ring. And I guess it somehow is a traditional game that might have come out of the Amish culture, but it would also make sense that it comes out of the Amish culture just because quoits and the Amish culture would be sort of that western Pennsylvania area, northern Pennsylvania area, which would sort of combine forces there onto why quoits. And I hope I'm not butchering the pronunciation there. If I am, somebody can definitely reach out to me on Instagram, and I'd welcome their historical storytelling of the game of quoits. So please reach out if you are a historian of quoits. Might be a fun little addition to this golf podcast, especially since it ties back to the game of pony golf. So going back to that North Penn Reporter story announcing the grand opening, I'm going to read a couple of part of this story just so that I can hopefully paint a picture for you and give you a little history on the game of pony golf and hitting Lansdale and I guess the some of the origins of miniature golf as we're now seeing games like putt stroke and others sort of take over the country aside from just the standard miniature golf. So here we go from the North Penn Reporter on July 3rd, just in time for the big 4th of July weekend in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. The North Penn Reporter announces the grand opening. Dun, dun. And I quote, "After 10 days of intense preparation and labor, the Lansdale Pony Golf Course is completed and will be open to the public this evening. The course is laid out on a lot between Lincoln Avenue and Vine Street and consists of a complete 18-hole course in miniature. The course presents an attractive scene with its green and white picket fence surrounding the quote, green. Large shade trees surround the entire course, providing ample shade and making the plot always cooling and refreshing. Sufficient parking is one of the features of the plot ground selected by Paul G. Hartman and Dr. Charles F. Russell, sponsors of the novelty game. Umbrellas and benches will be erected for comfort during the day, while several powerful arc lights will illuminate the entire course at night so that games can be played as easily then as during the day. Every one of the holes is entirely different from the others and presents obstacles which make it both difficult and more interesting. Sand hazards, bunkers, and water obstacles are a few of the barriers that will keep even an experienced golfer on his mettle to make that hole in par. The holes are raised from the ground of the course, which has been evenly graded and filled in with 100 tons of limestone gravel. Each hole is filled with sand and fenced in with a low green board fence. In the center of the course is a raised rock garden from the top, which the golfer may tee off. Small evergreen shrubs are planted about the course, further accentuating the green and white coolness of the plot against the background of white limestone. A small green and white caddy house has been erected in one corner of the course where clubs, balls, and scorecards may be obtained, as well as refreshments. Prizes will be offered for holes made in one on certain holes and for the lowest score of the week. The course can accommodate between 70 and 80 players at one time when they play in foursomes." So, pretty nice little history bit there of the grand opening of the Lansdale Pony Golf Course in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. Apparently it is, well, and I couldn't find the actual date of this historical PDF. It didn't have an actual date on it, so I could have obviously reached out to Mr. Dick Shearer. However, it sounds like it's where the post office now and probably still stands in Lansdale, and it's unsure when the or how long the pony golf course lasted, but it sounds like pony golf / miniature golf. According to Mr. Shearer here, his article outlines that apparently the pony golf course might have lasted until about the early 40s, as World War II sort of started to hit America, and it might have sort of faded away during World War II, and whether or not the Lansdale Pony Golf Course remained at the tail end of World War II as miniature golf and pony golf sort of reemerged with the return of the troops after World War II. Unsure, but it might be a fun thing to have Dick Shearer on, so I might have to reach out and schedule that episode for the future. But hopefully that's kind of a fun little tidbit of information about miniature golf. Now, we'll take a quick pause here and regroup before I tell my personal story in pony golf and sort of share a little bit more and help you get to know who I am as Scott Poniewaz and how the Instagram handle of @pony_golf came to be. So we'll return here in just a moment. Thank you for tuning in. While you're waiting, be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any future episodes. Make sure they auto download for you. And if you're so inclined, I always appreciate some positive feedback or reviews on whatever podcast network that you're tuning into. And again, have to give the shout out to my my YouTube stream as well. So if you want to catch the video version of this podcast, it is available on YouTube. Just search Pony Golf or A Good Walk Spoiled, and you'll find it over there. Take a quick break. Be right back. And here we go with the pony golf story. I figured it's probably good to introduce myself a little bit so that as you're listening, those of you that have got the first few episodes can get to know me a little bit better. Those of you that might be finding me through other podcasts out there, you might already know a little bit about me. Those of you that have maybe found me via my Instagram, you probably know quite a bit about me already, just based on what I've kind of shared. This is going to go a little more off the cuff than a lot of the other segments where I kind of have, little scripts and boilerplate things. So I'm going to try to keep it concise and keep it nice and tight so that I don't bore you all to death, because it's really not that crazy of a story. I just figured it helps for you to get to know me a little bit, and why I'm doing what I'm doing and how it came to be. So, it, I guess, goes as far back as the 1930s, as the previous segment showed, but pony golf, I guess, was born as another name for mini golf. Lo and behold, not where I came up with the idea. It actually goes back to my nickname, just my golf history. I started golfing when I was pretty much capable of walking. I've had a golf club in my hand since I was very little. Fortunately, was able to grow up in Madison, Wisconsin, and have access to a local country club there, Tacoma, for those of you that might know that particular golf club in the Madison area. Andy North, Sherry Steinhauer, both famous golfers that basically were members there. Steve Stricker actually was at Cherokee, which is a neighboring course that I played all the time in the junior golf tournaments and programs in the Madison area. Cherokee Country Club has since been rebranded and renovated, and it's now TPC Wisconsin, which Steve Stricker sort of took the lead on. His daughters played at University of Wisconsin, which is University of Ridge. Also, another course in the Madison area that I grew up playing a ton of high school golf at for a variety of different tournaments. So really, I grew up playing a lot of golf. Pretty much in the summer, my parents would drop us off at the golf course first thing in the morning. We'd go hit balls, we'd chip and putt. Like many youngsters, the putting green would be the site of many of Masters or US Open Championship winning putts that my friends and I would play for, and we'd bet snack mix, which was free in the clubhouse, with each other. So it was a lot of fun to grow up in that environment and just have access to so much golf. I'd pretty much all summer long play as much golf as I could. I'd jump in the swimming pool, take a break, and then I'd come back out and golf more, especially on certain days where it was men's days or women's days. And, the juniors had to sort of take the brunt of the tee times and not get the best access. But I still managed to play a lot, and we had an incredible, just great junior golf program that helped me really get to where I could learn the game of golf and be able to play it so much. And fortunate for that from my parents and having that opportunity. And so, as I mentioned, that junior golf program, Alan Mitchell definitely was somebody that made a huge impact on my game. He was the head pro at the time and also has been very involved in First Tee of Wisconsin. Betty Lemon as well, who was the chair of the junior program for pretty much all of my youth. Her son Jim ended up playing in some of the PGA tours. I know the Canadian and a couple of PGA events along the way. Also had the chance to play with people like John Turcotte, who also played on some of the mini tours, and some just incredible players through that program, which I was just very fortunate for. As I've grown up, I played high school golf. Actually, I also played very high levels of high school soccer, which could have taken me to college to play college soccer. But by the time I was playing state ODP, playing in club teams in Milwaukee and traveling year round, and I ended up having to drop off of the high school golf team. I was thinking my junior year. Part of that too, I had a football coach that was the golf coach as well, who I at the time was a big Fish fan, big kind of hippie, and I still had long hair. And one of the conditions to be able to make varsity, according to the coach for me in particular, was he told me I had to cut my hair. So between that and my soccer career, I kind of told the golf/football coach to go kick rocks. Stepped out of golf, at least at the high school competitive level. I still played summer golf leagues and stuff like that through the junior programs in the Madison area, but then I just focused on soccer. Ended up getting burned out from soccer, and I applied to two schools, the University of Montana, Montana State, and I chose, instead of being a college soccer player at the time, I really had no professional outcomes to look forward to. I decided, just with no soccer programs really close to great skiing, I would just pursue skiing, have fun, go to college, and I ended up at the University of Montana in Missoula. With that, I played, golf with buddies and played some of the courses around Missoula in the summers, and pretty casually. I think at that time there was probably more beer drinking than golfing, and just had fun with it. And that kind of perpetuated through most of my 20s. But after college, I ended up in Asia. And this is actually kind of a fun story. So I was in Asia and I still loved to golf. I essentially started running photography programs across Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Burma, India, throughout Southeast Asia. And during that first summer, I was part-time summer staff, hired on full-time. Every fall, we would basically end up at this base house that was in northeastern Thailand while I was running these high school service and adventure and photography programs. I eventually took over the India operations, but every fall, we would end up back in Thailand at this ricefields area in northeastern Thailand, very rural, very much just, in the sort of middle of nowhere Thailand. And so we had these huge rice fields out in the backyard. And we would have, I don't know, maybe about a dozen of us in Thailand working on the catalog that we would put out every year. And we had a designer come over from the US, and we would be editing all the text, all the programs, finalizing budgets, pricing, all these different things with the directors and the country directors, and then editing all the photography that would be in this 300-page catalog, essentially, that would go out every year. It was published with the National Geographic magazine publishing company. It was this whole big production. It was a lot of fun. But there was also a lot of downtime in the evenings. And as a golfer, I ended up finding out when we, at the time, would have to do some border runs to renew our visas over the Laos border about an hour away. And I ended up finding out that there was a small golf shop in the border town that was right there where we had to do these border crossings into Laos from Thailand. So I ended up finding out that I could buy golf balls in bulk and buy golf clubs. So I ended up buying a couple random clubs, like a 7-iron, a 3-iron, a driver, a couple wedges, whatever, to just be able to chip around and then also just use the rice fields as a golf range. Ended up buying all these golf balls for less than a penny a piece. So I just bought these like big rice bags full of hundreds of golf balls. And then we'd basically, every time somebody would go to the border, we'd just replenish those. But at the same time, we would be hitting them out into the rice fields. And we would just have our own private driving range. But every year, the rice fields would get harvested. All the rice would get pulled up. They'd dry out. All the water would go out of the rice fields. And the kids in the neighborhood would essentially go and collect as many golf balls as they could find. And then they'd bring them back to us every season, basically, once they could get in there and find these golf balls. And then they'd just basically sell us the golf balls back. And so it was this sort of constant inflow of golf balls that would replenish our golf range every season. And so we would just have to, basically flush off all the mud off these range balls that were in the rice fields in northeastern Thailand and then use them again the next year. And so with that, one day we had a random mahout. Mahout, for those that have never been over into Thailand, mahout is basically an elephant handler. When these elephants retire from the logging industry, which is what a lot of them are used for in Thailand, they'd be used to harvest teak, bring them out of the forest. They could navigate as big as they are. They could navigate through a lot of these bamboo forests and basically drag this heavy teak wood out of the forest. And so when they would essentially retire the elephants, they'd have mahouts or elephant handlers that were assigned to handle them. And so I'm going to post a picture in the Instagram here of this photo. Hopefully I can find it actually, and I'm not making a promise. The mahout comes wandering through our property on the edge of the rice field, sort of moving through this rural village. And we just so happened to be golfing in the backyard at the times. Obviously, when the range cart is out there, you don't swing at the cart, or if you do, bad form. So don't do it. But when the elephant comes through, you gotta hold off on the driving range. So we ending up getting some photos with this elephant that was wandering through in northeastern Thailand. Probably one of my most memorable golf photos of my life. So moving on from that, when I was over in Asia, tough to golf. I did get the opportunity to play at Delhi Golf Club, which was an experience in itself. I ended up playing that course, which was private to locals, but international foreigners they would allow as guests. And so I want to say I paid somewhere around the daily rate of maybe $50, maybe $75, and that even included the caddy. Caddy was actually on the PGA India tour, which was kind of fun. His dad was a teaching pro, I want to say up in Chandigarh. So he grew up playing golf and then caddied at the Delhi Golf Country Club, which is over by the Oberoi Resort for those that have maybe spent some time in Delhi. It was, from what I recall, a very fantastic course. It was very warm, very muggy. I want to say around 100 degrees the day that I played. I usually was over there in sort of May, so it could be monsoon season. But it was a great round of golf. The course itself winds its way through some old ancient ruins. The other thing that I'd never had a chance to play among was peacocks. So you'd have peacocks just wandering through the fairway. Pretty special round of golf. And at the time, I wasn't as big of a golfer as I am now. I do wish that I had maybe spent a little more time appreciating that course while I was there. It was more just kind of I really want to go golf and go play a golf course, and I did. It does host some of their pro level events over in India. So kind of a great course now, and I'd love to get back and play it. So my next trip to India, I'm definitely going to have it on my list and haul my clubs over. I think I used rentals that day just because I didn't have my own clubs over there, but it was a lot of fun to have that experience. The only international golf experience that point in my career. Fast forward through that sort of time in my life, I started spending time between New York and Asia. Didn't really get out golfing very much. I then started my entrepreneurial journey, founding my first company, and then sort of joined other companies as early stage, or was running my own companies throughout the years. And while I was in New York, I didn't really get to play golf very much. My brother lived out on a course in Princeton that was a public. And so I would occasionally take the train out, maybe once a month if I was lucky through the summer, go play 18, 36 holes for a weekend, and then sort of get back into the city. Those of you that know the challenges of playing golf in New York City without a car, hauling your clubs with the train, not a very fun experience on the weekends, especially when it's super crowded. People are trying to get to the beach and everything else. So didn't really play too much through my 20s. My sort of early mid 30s, I moved to Austin for a couple years, and that's where I really started to get back into golf. So this was, I don't know, maybe the mid 2015-ish is whatever those mid 20 teens. And so I started playing golf in Austin a little bit more. I joined a club down there that was semi-private, started getting out, playing more regularly, reestablished my handicap and everything, started playing in families. At that time, I guess I was the guest of the member guest at the home club and playing in other events, back home. And then COVID hits. And like many of us, golf was sort of the only way to get outside and enjoy life. Sort of at the beginning of COVID, I was back in New York after being in Texas for a while. I had just kind of moved back. I had been playing at some of the publics, and then some of the publics were kind of shut down. And then I was like, I was already thinking about joining a club. At the time, I was starting to spend more time down on the Jersey Shore. I had been looking at some clubs up in northern New Jersey. And then finally, as I was spending more time on the Jersey Shore during the summer, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to join a club. And so I got a membership at a club called Jumping Brook. Some of you might know it. It's an A.W. Tillinghast, sort of right on the edge of Asbury Park. Shorter distance. It's kind of gone through a couple waves of ownership, even going from private to public to private again. And then sort of had some ownership changes in the last probably 10 years or so, where they really started investing a lot more money in renovating and restoring and bringing a lot of a lot of these investments and things like that came through, they really brought the course into great shape. So as I started to play in some of the morning games and things like that on the weekend and play with some different groups of guys, I just started to get back into the competitive spirit. I also started working with a golf coach, Bill Schmiedes, who I had mentioned in an earlier episode, the Hilton Head episode, Mastery Golf Performance, and he also coaches me on Skillist. He played an integral part in helping me get my game on point. So as I started really getting back into golf, sort of dialing it down into the single digits, I went from about a 15 when I first got back into golf and started taking lessons with him, and then started to keep my handicap. And then really now I'm down to about a 2 handicap, and that's over the course of several years. So this was right at the beginning of COVID. So I guess that would have put us right around 2019, early 2019, maybe in March, June. when that season was coming to be and the golf courses were still kind of closed but starting to reopen. During that time, I also was getting the competitive edge back in. I started, I think, the Pony Golf handle around 2019, 2020 is when I first started making posts. And most of that was because of the golf tournaments that I was starting to play in. And I realized on my personal Instagram that my family and friends were all attached to, and it was sort of general food and, golf and my dog and all that kind of stuff. I was starting to post more and more golf stuff, and it was probably starting to get a little annoying to people. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to break this out, and I'm going to start to just kind of see what I can do with it, and see what I can do in the golf world, and really sort of lean into this whole amateur golf touring thing. And so during those first years, I started, especially on the East Coast. When you're living in New York, you can play on the upstate New York tours. You can play in the New Jersey tours when those came to be. You can play in the Philly tours. You can play in the New York and sort of Long Island golf tours. So I was pretty much every weekend during the summer trying to get out on these different amateur tours. I was starting to win tournaments. I was starting to lead my different divisions and things like that for the Golf Week and the Amateur Players tours. And as you start to finish in the top ranks of those tournaments or win some of the major 2-day events and things like that, you start to qualify for the national tour events. And so as I was sort of leaning into this a little bit more, I was also starting to travel more and more. And so I ended up qualifying for the Golf Week Amateur National Tour event, National Championship event, which is down in Hilton Head during the first year. And so I went down there. The second or third year of playing in these amateur tours, I ended up joining the Amateur Players Tour, which was sort of a spin out of the Golf Week Tour. And a lot of people sort of left to go play in the Amateur Players Tour. They hosted their first national championship at Pinehurst. So I went there. And then with Amateur Players Tour, they started hosting these major events that were throughout the country at just some of the best golf destinations in the country. So I ended up playing at places like Turning Stone more like regionally, ended up playing at Pinehurst, as I mentioned, ended up going to Whistling Straits. I ended up going out to Utah and down in southern Utah playing Sand Hollow and Copper Rock. I ended up playing TPC Scottsdale and just ended up crisscrossing the country more and more. I played TPC San Antonio, which is also host to the Valero Texas Open. So as I started playing in these tours, I just started playing these great destinations throughout the country, and also meeting all these great people throughout the country. They would end up following me on Instagram, they'd comment, they'd share stuff, and we'd all kind of like interact on some of this stuff. I started filming some stuff on GoPro. Actually, the Sand Hollow event in southern Utah in St. George, about an hour and a half from Mesquite. The Red Rocks photo that's on my Instagram, many people have probably seen. That was one that ended up taking some notice from GoPro, ended up kind of leading to some of their resharing of that photo, and also eventually them reaching out onto one of the sort of influencer sponsorship platforms, and they offered me what started as a grassroots sponsorship and has now kind of evolved and grown. So now I'm actually in the process of working on some more vlogging, which is part of this YouTube channel and podcast that started to come up. So stay tuned for some more of the video content to come and the adventures in golf that I've been taking. And then so Pony Golf really just started to snowball. And I started to get more and more of a following. And as my following kind of grew, with some of that GoPro stuff, I've had the opportunity to do some work now with a variety of different brands. I now have done work with Bonobos, which was pretty awesome, and I did some work with them at Inland Country Club a couple years back when I was still in New York, which is, I want to say, one of the first U.S. Open or Senior PGA. Look at my old Instagram posts, and I had the history there. But then other brands like Echo Golf and now Vessel Golf Bags, which is coming to be. I'm starting to do a little work with Holderness and Bourne. Red Rooster, which is the golf glove company that I've now grown to love. They've taken over the quality of just about any golf glove that's on the market today, with their premium golf glove, premium Cabretta leather, great golf gloves. And now I do a lot of work with them. Like I said, Holderness and Bourne. And then I've got some other partnerships that are definitely in the works. I've done some work with Galway Bay, and I'm planning on doing some more work with Galway Bay on some of their stuff. I even have some TV opportunities and some video opportunities that are potentially coming to be. I'd actually, a couple of years ago, when my sort of following started to grow, some of that, I almost was on a reality TV show that was sort of like a golf skills challenge that like suddenly miraculously just like disappeared. There were a handful of us that many of you follow, and some bigger names that were all in talks to be on this and had done several Zoom meetings, and then all of a sudden it just disappeared, and none of us really know what happened. And then the next one that I might be doing might involve some international travel overseas. That could be pretty fun. And I'm pretty excited about the prospects of that one coming into place. But so golf has been an incredible opportunity for me. Created a lot of these interesting trips, travels. And now that some of my following has started to grow, Millions and Golfer Gang Network have helped me to get this A Good Walk Spoiled podcast off the ground and running, and they're helping me to learn some new things in this new media scape of podcasting and YouTube podcasting, video podcasting. So I'm, still a work in progress here. With GoPro, I've got some opportunities there to do some vlogging that I'm pretty exciting about, and some more documenting of the travels. I've even actually had some opportunities to work with some incredible people, like Patrick Conway and the marketing team over at Big Sky Resort. Big Sky Resort, it's actually tagged or pinned, I guess, in my Instagram. Last summer, sort of at the tail end of the summer, had the opportunity to do the first sort of marketing work with them. And Patrick Conway is the drone pilot. He actually has a drone racing background, and he and I were brought on by Big Sky to do this golf post for their marketing team. And he basically was able to follow the golf shot into the 18th green. I'll be 100% honest, it wasn't a first take. To be able to do that and time everything so perfectly, it was a great, very fun experience to go through. But he basically follows the golf shot, does a 360 around the golf ball in the air, and then follows the ball as it drops and lands about 10 feet. So to make all of that happen all at once, definitely took a few takes. But I will say that, having to hit that same shot time and time again, it definitely helped to dial in some distances and some accuracy. And I will say that my accuracy was all there, but getting the absolute perfect shot was just an awesome challenge. And so I've since now had the opportunity to do some incredible fun things, and more of those opportunities are coming day by day, and I expect more of those to come throughout the summer. If you're ever interested in collaborating or partnering with me, or having me on a podcast or anything like that, shoot me a DM. You can reach me on my Instagram at pony_underscore golf. Always happy to travel. Most recently I've been a little less involved on the Amateur Players Tour, as well as the Golf Week Tour. I have done some of the AGT Amateur Golf Tour events. I actually did the Loop and Forest Dunes, which was a fun one, which I think is going to justify a Chips, Bites, and Flights segment down the road. AGT events are a ton of fun. It's sort of like the guys' trip. Especially since, and honestly, Amateur Players Tour as well, especially now that I've gotten to know so many great guys on that tour, and women, actually, a lot of guys and gals, as well as spouses, significant others, family members that travel along on these tours. They're family events, and I'm going to also do a highlight on some of these amateur tours down the road. So stay tuned for that one. There's even like Amateur Golf Society, which sort of somebody that I used to do some work with back in the past, I just found out about. They have a growing tour that's sort of in the Philly area, and I guess now LA and Scottsdale coming soon. So there's a lot of these adult tours. And for me, personally, I don't have kids. I have been a little more free ranging, I guess. I was married and divorced or whatever, so I've as my friends have gotten older, and I'm a little over 40 now, I just sort of turned that corner. Being able to get 4-8 people to go on a golf trip can be almost impossible to schedule nowadays. And so I've just found that a lot of these tours make it easy, because you can say, all right, I'm going to book this, and I'm going to go play Whistling Straits, or I'm going to go and I'm going to play Chambers Bay. And I should say that iconic photo for Pony Golf, as well as for A Good Walk Spoiled, my icon that has become my millions.co merch as well that you find over there. That icon was a photo that was taken during a photo shoot that we were able to basically hire a photographer to do a couple dozen photos. And so I ended up pulling that iconic icon from a photo of me walking the fairway at dusk at Chambers Bay. So when I post this episode, I will also post that photo and reshare it so that you can see it on the Instagram. I'll try to throw it up here too, in the corner or whatever, to show it. And then actually the one that's up here over my shoulder, that's the walking photo of the podcast cover. That particular photo is Copper Rock in St. George, Utah. And that was probably some of the first months that Copper Rock was open, and I played that on an Amateur Players Tour event. So now that I live out in Montana, I've relocated from New York to Montana a couple of years ago. After going to school here, I was always kind of fighting to get back. I've been coming to Big Sky to ski since I was in middle school, and always have loved it out here. And I've been coming skiing here for years and years and years. And so now that I live out here, some of the Amateur Players Tour events aren't as convenient to get to. Flying can also be pretty expensive. It can be, very expensive, actually. Oftentimes you can find a cheaper flight to Europe than flying to Salt Lake City. It can be just weird sometimes. So now I play a lot in the Montana State amateur events, both the state amateur and mid-ams, and then some of the PGA sectionals that they do around here that are pretty fun events that are across Montana. And actually, even in Wyoming, I haven't gone to those. Now MSGA, the Montana State Golf Association, has since joined the Pacific Northwest Golf Association. So this season, I actually now have access to some of the Pacific Northwest regionals. So I'm pretty excited to probably check out maybe the Mid-Am, which I just started looking into this last week. So I might have to make a little trip to McCall, Idaho for that particular one. But I think it's Mountain Jug Golf Club, which I'd never heard of. So I'm, going to hopefully get exposed to some new clubs over in Idaho that I hadn't played. But so that's kind of my journey. A very long, winded journey. But I do hope that this episode kind of painted a little more picture. If you ever have any questions about amateur golf, about, sort of the accidental influencer that I've become. I don't like calling myself an influencer. I just kind of have to do it because that's the nomenclature. But I just enjoy working with other golf brands out there. And I also enjoy making golf content and traveling and sharing my golf adventures. So hopefully you enjoy the A Good Walk Spoiled podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed my long-winded story about how I came to be and how Pony Golf, the Instagram account, came to be. I do have a TikTok, which maybe one day I'll start posting to. I just find one platform to be enough, as well as now the podcast and the YouTube stuff. So anyway, wrap up this segment, and I think I'm going to skip the chips, bites, and flights this episode and just call it a day. I think this episode has gone long enough, but stay tuned for the next episode and the return of chips, bites, and flights. I think I've given you a handful of locations to go tackle. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for posting your reviews of the podcast. And again, don't hesitate to reach out. I even have my email on my Instagram account that you can reach out to if you're interested in partnering or collaborating or having me as a guest or being a guest here. Always open to the outreach and the feedback. So thanks again. Hit them long, hit them straight, and hopefully your golf season is now getting into full swing like mine is. That concludes today's episode of A Good Walk Spoiled, Adventures in Golf, hosted by Scott Poniewaz. That's myself. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, subscribe, rate it high, and follow us on Instagram at pony_golf to stay in the loop. We'll catch you next time.